Alright, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations be unto the Akim, out here pushing his gospel and truth and sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is the Brother Quana Wath coming back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. Salakia. And, originally I came across, an article on, the People's Voice.tv that ultimately says that the UK government, right, releases a new scamdemic bill, ultimately called the All Scamdemic. And, I'm ultimately code wording the second word, but it's All Scamdemic Hazard Bill. And, we, as the scriptures say, right, 2 Corinthians 2:11, right, we're not ignorant of Satan's devices, man. We understand, that, immediately after the first scamdemic, right, back in 2020, you had Kill Gates basically stating that, that we ultimately need to be prepared for, the second wave, if you will, of, another, dis-ease, right, coming about, and this right here, right, is ultimately following that sentiment, right? This is on the, the actual gov.uk. It says £1 billion invested in health protection as new scamdemic strategy published, right? It says the new scamdemic preparedness strategy has been published alongside the UK government's response to the Crown Vic Royale Inquiry Module 2 report. Right, we'll skip the bullet points. Right, it says the UK's readiness for future scamdemics is being overhauled through the publication of a new scamdemic preparedness strategy, backed by around £1 billion of investment in health protection measures, including enhancing our access to essential jabs and therapeutics, improving our scamdemic surveillance systems. Right, because really, ultimately, right, it's about control. Right, and the same thing happened with the 911. Right, it allowed for Esau to pass, something called the Patriot Act, which, allowed them to be able to continue to, to survey and tap into people's phones and laptops and TVs and so on and so forth in the name of, protecting, America from, terrorists. And ultimately the same thing kind of happened with, the Crown Vic Royale, right? It ultimately furthered, the digital system, right? The digital infrastructure, right? Because they ultimately went from, sliding your card in to now it's, contactless payments and so on and so forth. So there's always, right, with these different, situations, if you will, emergencies, crises, so on and so forth, right? There's always something that comes out of it that, Esau uses, right, to further his agenda, right? You had, I think it was it might have been a Rockefeller, if I'm not mistaken, but there was a statement that was made, that they, and I knew it was an Edomite. I just can't remember. I know it was I'm pretty sure it was a Rockefeller. I'd have to go back and, basically look up who said it. But, there was a statement that said that, they never let a good crisis go to waste, right? So they ultimately utilize it, to their benefit, really to push, their agenda, if you will, and their agenda is to do what? To ultimately have full control, over the world, right? Over everyone and everything, via this technology, right? Via, the micro C hit, man, right? It says improving our scamdemic surveillance systems and expanding our ability to roll out testing to the whole population, right? It says published by the Department of Health and Social Care today. The strategy outlines concrete action already taken across government, to embed lessons from the Crown Vic Royale. And then as you see right here, the name of the actual bills, right? It's called the All Scamdemic Hazard Bill, right? It says will be drafted to ensure the government has legislative options ready to review and introduce as necessary in response to a range of pathogens. This will sit alongside a suite of prepared options for community protection measures to support swift decision making and prioritization to keep people safe. And see, this is what they pass it on as, right? They pass it on as, keeping the people safe, or, helping the people. But see, we're constantly, blowing the whistle, on Esau Edom and his agenda and the things that he ultimately, says, right? Because he said the same thing, when it came to the actual, the Crown Vic Royale, really, actually, I mean, when it comes to, the jab, in the time of the Crown Vic Royale, 2020, 2021, they were telling you to take the jab, this and the third, it would help you, benefit you, your family, so on and so forth. And what happened? And now we're seeing people dying left and right, So we're telling you what, then don't trust this devil, man, at all. Do not trust this damn devil at all. That's in Sirach. Was that Sirach 12 and 10? It says, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Right? So you're not supposed to trust this damn devil, man. You Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, as well as you Israelite foreigners, you're not supposed to trust this devil, right? Because we understand Ezekiel 35:5. He has a perpetual hatred for you, right? So he ultimately wants to take you out, right? He wants to get rid of you Israelites, man. And so, like, yeah. I got a fucking goddamn sickness going around in my damn job, man. Lord will, I can, take some, herbs and whatnot and get rid of this shit, man. But bear with me, Baba Shah. But nonetheless, right, you're not supposed to trust this devil, right? Because he's just a fucking liar, right? He'll tell you, oh, we're doing this in the name of, safety, or we're doing this in the name of, health and so on and so forth. But in reality, right, he has ulterior motives. We already seen, right, as the scriptures say, right, he is a physicians of no value. We already seen these so-called doctors and whatnot, right? They ultimately came out and said this, that, and the third about the jab, and this, that, and the third about the Crown Vic Royale, and ultimately it was all bullshit, right? Every last little bit of it was fucking straight up bullshit. And if, Fauci, right, was saying anything that was actually valid and truthful, why did he need to be pardoned? Why would he need to be pardoned by the president? Clearly he, was lying, clearly he was deceiving the people, and that ultimately all that information came out. But what they do? They ended up pardoning him. If he was telling the truth, why would he need to be pardoned? So you can't trust these devils, man. They're fucking evil. Let's keep reading. Drop down, skip the bulletins. It says the new strategy replaces a previous strategy for Scamdemic influenza published in 2011 and builds on wider reforms taking place through the 10-year health plan. It has been directly informed by early findings from the largest ever Scamdemic exercise in UK history, which took place in autumn 2025, right? The fall, right? So we're talking about October, November, September, October, or November, right? Sometime, in that area, last year, right? And this is the same thing that happened right before the Scamdemic, ultimately, had taken place, before all the lockdowns, before all this other stuff, right? They did an exercise. I can't remember what the name of that exercise was, but they did an exercise right before they ultimately brung it out. And see, now they're doing another one, or they did another one, as you see right here, called Exercise Pegasus, right? It says saw every government department, the devolved governments, arms length bodies, local resilience forums, and external stakeholders respond to the spread of a simulated pathogen over a number of weeks. So you best believe Esau's planning, right, to roll something out, and we understand that lockdowns are coming, right? It's ultimately bound to happen, right? Whether they ultimately, do it under the guise of a new, dis-ease, another scamdemic, or they do it under the guise of an energy crisis, right? Because there is going to be, an energy crisis, that's ultimately going to take place, right? You got all these different data centers going up. You got oil and so on and so forth being, blocked from, from America receiving it, right? So there is an energy crisis that is looming, but again, they're also passing bills like we're reading, right? Preparing for another scamdemic, and through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shah, we're telling, right, the masses, man, to repent before this situation unfolds, man, because it's not going to be like this last scamdemic. Yes, you did have people, rioting and whatnot, especially outside of America. These people in America, they're too fucking stupid, but outside of America, there was definitely riots, right? There were violent protests and so on and so forth, that ultimately took place, based off of these, this lockdown and the scamdemic. And you best believe it's not going to go down the same way, man. This could ultimately, aid in the ushering in of, the military, man. And if the UK, is establishing, a bill prior to and then doing another exercise, and you best believe America's doing the same thing, right? Because it always starts overseas and then it works its way here, and we've seen it time and time again. We know it's coming, right? It says, this work site sits alongside other action the government has already taken to build resilience in the jab supply chain since the last scamdemic, including signing a 10-year partnership with Moderna. The world-leading pharmaceutical company has built a state-of-the-art innovation and technological lab in Oxfordshire that is producing British-made jabs to protect people across the country. So see, here you go, right? They're already starting, right? They're already planning for this next lockdown, this next scamdemic, which again, right, Bill Gates, right, ultimately stated that there would be, a second wave, and this very well could be it, right? It says, Minister of Health for Public Health and Prevention, Minister Sharon Hodgson said, this strategy represents a serious long-term commitment to protecting the public from further health threats. We learned hard lessons from the Crown Vic Royale, and it is our responsibility to act on them. Informed by Exercise Pegasus, the largest scamdemic exercise in UK history, this strategy strengthens our capabilities, allowing us to respond faster and more effectively than the next health threat emergencies. When the next health threat emerges, the public deserves nothing less. And again, right, they're ultimately, saying it right under the guise of protecting the masses, right, protecting, the people, right. But we understand it's nothing but bullshit, right? It's farce, But let me go back to Sirach 12 and verse 11. It says, though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, right? Beware of this damn devil, man, right? It says, and thou shalt be unto him as thou hast, if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. Esau is wicked from the core, and it's been proven time and time again, especially with all this different, the EP Steam files that are coming out and so on and so forth. Why would the fuck would you trust this damn devil, man? If you trust this devil and ultimately, take another, jab, or, listen to, these different, physicians of no value, that's ultimately on you, and you're going to deal with the consequences of doing so, right? Verse 12, it says, set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, man, he's always up to do no good, man, right? It says, set him not by thee, Sark 12 and 12, set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. Right? Because at the end of the day, Esau has an ulterior motive, man. Esau is a greedy, covetous man. He's that murderous, bloody man that the Bible speaks of, man. He is the wicked, right? The border of wickedness, Malachi 1 and 4. So you can't trust his devil, man. But all you people who did, you're either your immune system is extremely weak, and or you've had loved ones that took it and they died, and or you were sick, and or you're about to die, or whatever the case may be, right? Nonetheless, it was just poison that he was giving the people, man, right? Just straight up poison, right? Verse 13, who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, or any such come nigh wild beast, right? Nobody. Because you were ultimately warned, right? We told you about this damn devil when the scamdemic happened right before he was offering the jabs and so on and so forth. We were going into detail. Esau was taking brothers' videos down, so on and so forth. Hey, but we're telling you the same thing, right? As we see them preparing for, this new scamdemic, more lockdowns, so on and so forth. Hey, don't trust this damn devil, man. No matter the circumstance, no matter the situation, we understand that everything that's happening and taking place as of right now is ultimately, happening, right? So that Esau can, bring about his NWO, right? That great reset, And again, he can do it under the guise of a new scamdemic or, an energy crisis and so on and so forth, right? We don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to take place, but through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahshua, we see what Esau's doing, man. So we can kind of, extrapolate, his movements based on, what we've seen him do prior, Again, going back to 2 Corinthians 2 and 11, right? We're not ignorant of Satan's devices, his evil plots, and his evil schemes, right? We see right through his ass, and the Lord has taken that wisdom away from Esau, and out of Teman. So it's like Esau can't even really hide his plans anymore, man. Prior to the scamdemic, we really didn't find out about that damn plan, until, really it was too late, and now here we are seeing, this plan, it's out here, So, hey, Esau, you're done for, man, right? And you people don't ever trust this damn devil, man. He's the wicked that the Bible speaks of, You need to be on your P's and Q's and keep your, spiritual, eyes and ears and head right on a swivel, man. Because shit about to get bad out here, man. We are definitely in some perilous times, as you read in 2 Timothy 3 and 1, right? We are definitely in some perilous times. So, hey, be on the lookout, man. Let me grab this, man, and we'll close out. We're just kind of, rolling in the spirit as I had seen that article and did a little bit of research on it. But this is Ephesians 5 and 15. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, right? And you got a lot of these people, man, they're fucking fools, right? Because they don't pay attention, right? When you look at it literally, these people's eyes are always down looking at their phone, right? They don't ever look up, look around them, this, that, and the third. And this is how kids, women, so on and so forth, right, ultimately get snatched up. It's because they're not paying attention to their surroundings. They're too busy being on their phone, this and the third. But even spiritually, right, these people they're not looking at these different events and that are taking place in the earth and, ultimately thinking that, hey, this could affect me, right? This could affect my life, right? These people are not worried about those kind of things because they say, it's negative or it's fear mongering or so on and so forth. But that's okay, right? That just means you're not going to be informed, right? The scriptures say, a prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, man. Meaning you're going to be looking around. You're going to be paying attention. That's what it says. But as wise, right? A wise man, prudent. When you go into that word prudent, it goes back to wise, right? So a wise man is going to be paying attention to his surroundings, paying attention to what's going on, right? So that way he's not going to be caught off guard. You know, it says redeeming the time because the days are evil. And we are definitely in some evil times, man. Right? We are definitely in some evil times. So continue to watch, continue to pray, you know, and you know, just maintaining the spirit to the best you can, right? Try to stay in the spirit as much as possible. But verse 17 says, wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. And the will of the Lord is that prophecy be fulfilled, right? That the elect will be sealed as we see these gates of mercy closing, you know, and prophecy will be fulfilled, you know. But that's all I got, man. Lord will, you know, it was edifying. Lord will, straight to the point. Lord will is informing, you know. But I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachak Kodash, double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.